Hello, and we are back. Hopefully they will be able to finish the opening statements. I guess there's some water pipe problems, and so I don't know if they got that resolved or not, but we'll just wait and see. Hello, welcome back. Hello. I think they're going to come back around 1:30 their time. It's 3:07 now. We'll just kind of like wait and see. We'll see some action. Yes, a water pipe busted, and they don't have any. They don't have water at the court. No, we are in Arizona.
their second search warrant, they came back and recovered the AK-47. But that is the AK-47.
After there, we'll probably recess for the day.
47. And we talked about the bullets or the.
About that, and I'll see you back in the jury. We'll see you back in court.
Okay, here's a little bit at the end of this. When he did talk about how they might have to just call it the day. Hopefully I can get this back up and running. Okay, wait a minute.
47. And
Stay
we
with
talked
me
about
here.
the bullets or the rounds, but I've been
When he
using a
breaks
phrase that
her
I need to
off.
explain to you, and that is a spent casing.
Before we
the
left off,
or the round has several parts to it. It has the projectile, that's the piece of metal that's on the top that you can see that's shiny on the bullet that's in this picture. And then on the bottom is the darker part.
Remember it.
And that part's called the casing. And inside the casing are the explosives that cause the projectile to spew out at the top of the round. And so what's left over and what ejects from the weapon is called the spent casing. That's just that metal piece that's left over that the explosive is now out of and the projectile is now out of. So 9 casings were recovered. I believe. But again, because of the terrain and the type of weapon used, stated that.
Please remember the admonition of the court. That applies to the break at all times. All right?
State and detectives were there. Just to give you an idea where those casings.
We'll fix it shortly after there. We'll probably just recess for the day.
It was in the same spot when they came back.
Okay, it's coming
and
here
they
in
did
2
recover
seconds here.
The second search warrant. This is the ATF canine that found the first casing in this case. And you can see the tent, the evidence tent is where that first casing was located. The next day, you can see detectives have located the other 8 casings in this case. And just to give you an idea where those casings are located, this is just a still shot of that aerial drone footage we looked at. And you can see the yellow circle is where the 8 casings were discovered by the detective.
There.
And the one in blue is the one casing that was discovered by the canine.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's almost noon. Let's break for the lunch hour. I don't have any additional information about the water situation. Saw my court administrator coming in here, but I doubt it's fixed yet. We're going to break for lunch. Back in the jury room at 1:30. We'll find out what the water situation is and decide to go from there. But if they haven't fixed it and not able to fix it shortly after there, we'll probably just recess for the day. That's optimistic about that, and I'll see you back in the jury. We'll see you back in court. Please be in the jury room at 8:30. Please remember the admonition of the court. That applies to the break at all times. All right? We're going to recess.
All right. We'll refresh. All right, so they should be back within 10 minutes or so, or hopefully that's all resolved. But if not, I guess we'll just have to wait till Monday. Yeah, they get to regroup. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point, Mommy. Well, yeah. Well, she's not doing a very good job this time around. So what's she going to do during lunch? She can, yeah. That is a very good point. All right. So my question is, you think the judge is going to be biased towards all this? Do you think the judge is leaning towards the state more? I don't know. No, we never did figure out who the interpreter was for. Hi, Lori. Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, this is our second. Yeah, make sure you like me. Begging for likes. All right. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. You think he'll be biased to the state? Yeah, I do. That your comment is actually let's see. I had to run up the stairs. I'm sorry. This is really a good a good statement from you, Wombat. Wombat mommy? Yeah. I think so too. I thought it was kind of odd that he stopped her. like out of the clear blue sky, all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're going to break for lunch now because you're doing a really bad job. And I think maybe perhaps you can regroup a little bit. I'm sure he didn't say that. Probably thought it. I bet he thought it. Oh, the state's doing real. Oh my gosh, they got to regroup. Okay, pipelines busted. So what? They did affect the court. Right, right. So do you guys think this is an excuse for the state to? This is really, really weird. I don't think I've ever saw a case where the judge just said, okay, let's break for lunch right now. We'll come back and if we have problems with the water situation, we're just going to have to go in recess until Monday. Come on, really? Seriously? I don't know. It's just weird. I do too. I bet you anything they're not going to proceed for the rest of the day. You don't think they're what? You don't think they're going to proceed for the rest of the day? Do you think it's going to be in recess? Gosh, come on. Isn't that a little suspicious, you guys? You think they'll proceed? I don't think they will. I bet they don't. Well, he did say if they couldn't get the water resolved in the courtroom or in the courthouse, they were just going to go ahead and quit for the day. That's what I've heard. I don't know. I might be wrong. It's 1:27 in Arizona. Oh, okay. Yeah, we might move forward. Okay, so they're supposed to be back at 1:30, and it's 1:30, like 1:27 their time. So I'm expecting them to start driving into the courthouse. Of course, it could be a nap time. Yes, I love nap times. Right. They will have to resume and tell us that yes, they will. Definitely. Why do they always have to be so late? Yeah, that's true. Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for court to get back, and hopefully they will root. Hopefully they'll go forward with the court. We never know. They're having water problems. Yeah, no kidding. Come on. Did everybody have a good lunch? Oh, yummy. I had a tuna sandwich. It was good. God, it is way too late. I am so sorry. I'm just kind of looking up some information. Oh my gosh, it's so late. When have they got their water fixed? Oh, yeah, and then they have to go to, oh, never mind. I was going to say they have to go to the bathroom and there's no water in the courthouse. Oh, what a mess. What a mess. Yeah. A long line at McDonald's. Oh, God, can you imagine? Trying to round everybody up because they're probably trying to do their comfort breaks. You know what else to say it. What kind of pudding did you have? I love pudding. Love it, love it, love it. Wow, they are late. Yeah. Maybe the judge is at McDonald's using the bathroom. People, hurry up. I got to get to court. Okay, we've been live for 43 minutes and 42 seconds. Oh, that sounds interesting. Are you crocheting it or knitting it, quilting it? Right now I'm just kind of like staring at the screen, and I was cutting out some Barbie patterns that I wanted to try this weekend. What is everybody? Yeah, let's talk about what everybody's doing. Yeah. Other than that, I've just been kind of messing around. I love to crochet too. I love it all. I like to sew a lot too. I sew a lot. Excuse me. Oh. You think they would be online to tell us that they're not going to be on? They're not going to proceed? Got to come on and tell us. Is that going to be for you? Your outfit? Your crocheting? Oh, what a lucky niece. Gosh, maybe the other channels know why it's taking so long. Too bad they can't come in and tell us. Should tell us. Sewing's a lot of fun. One of these days I'll have to show you my dresses that I make or made. What project is that would take 2 years to get done? Okay, I think it, just a second. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. I think it is on. Let's see. I am going to, okay. My apologies here. I'm going to share a screen.
People are actually more afraid of me than I am of them because they run when they see me. They get
Figure out
scared.
how I'm going to get the sound.
He starts to pick up on as he goes out, and he goes out every day on his ranch. He's a cattle rancher. He's out there every day.
Oh.
He sees trails. He sees tracks. Any kind of illegal immigration on your property, call the ranch liaison. The ranch liaison also sends information to the
Here it
rancher.
is.
So if the ranch
I don't know why
liaison
the
is
other one
aware
didn't
that
pop
there's a big
up.
group of people in a certain area, if it's near a ranch, the ranch liaison will communicate that to the rancher to say, here's a heads up, I'm letting you guys know there's this number of people in your area, things of that nature. If Mr. Kelly were to ever see a helicopter circling his property, for example, and he doesn't know what's going on, he calls the ranch liaison because that's whose helicopter that is, and they're going to know what's going on, and they'll.
Okay, it looks like a new.
So Mr. Kelly establishes this relationship and this rapport
it's a new
with Border
attorney.
Patrol over the years.
Just a minute, let me
He
fix this.
learns over the years that
Wow.
the response time to his property is not necessarily very fast. So if he calls
Another
somebody,
attorney
he
on
might
here.
not get somebody out there for 15 minutes or something like that. And by that time, whoever was there is gone. Whatever he saw is no longer there. That's just the nature of reality on the ground.
See the
for
defense?
Mr. Kelly out there. This is all pretty fine and dandy for many, many years. And then things start to change.
Oh, I thought
Mr. Kelly starts to see different things. He's not seeing as many family groups anymore. Mr. Kelly starts to see individuals carrying backpacks. Men, always men, carrying backpacks, and going along the fence lines. He knows that these are
Okay, it does
individuals
sound like
engaged in
that.
illegal activity because when they see him, they run away. Still, people run away from him. And then things change. And things change in a very dangerous and a very frightening way for Mr. Kelly and for his wife. Mr. Kelly starts to see larger groups, and he starts to see larger groups of all men carrying large backpacks. At first, he doesn't see any weapons, but he's seeing a difference. These aren't the same family groups that he saw when he first started living on this property. This is something else. He talks to the ranch liaison, they communicate with him. He learns that there's drugs in this area. There's human trafficking in this area. There are other things going on besides family groups coming through here. The ranch liaison communicate with Mr. Kelly eventually, and they never used to say this before, but they start to say, there's a group in your area, be careful. Don't try to stay, if while there's this group in this area, don't go out. They communicate different messages like that. It used to be you run into a group of people, it's no problem. People might be scared, they might be afraid that you'll report them or something, but this is different. Something has changed. Now there's more fear coming from Mr. Kelly. Where he starts to see weapons. He sees, again, these groups of men carrying backpacks, and this time he'll see a rifle, maybe 2 rifles. Things start to get much more dangerous. This isn't what it used to be. On at least one occasion, somebody takes a shot at Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly gets fired at least one occasion. On that particular occasion, Mr. Kelly didn't have a rifle with him. He had his pistol with him, which he carried with him a lot, but he didn't have a rifle. And the person who fired the shot was so far away, his pistol would be ineffective. So Mr. Kelly dropped down into the grass and he waited and he hoped. He hoped that nothing further was going to happen. And he stayed there for about 15 minutes before he was able to gather himself and come in. Over the years, he's reported a number of incidents to law enforcement involving either seeing people or hearing shots, being approached by people, those sorts of things. Over the years, he's made a number of reports. And typically, the report gets investigated, law enforcement comes, they take Mr. Kelly's statement, they can't find anyone because it took too long for them to get out there, people are gone anyway, and nothing happens other than he's able to report it. But because of this heightened level of danger and this heightened level of risk, Mr. Kelly starts to feel unsafe on his property. And he knows when he goes out, he needs to be armed to protect himself. He also chooses to be armed as a deterrent. He hopes that if people see him, and if they see that he's carrying a rifle, they will leave him alone.
His life,
and then nothing has to happen. No encounters have to take place. Mr. Kelly does not wish for a violent encounter. This is some of the background coming from Mr. Kelly and his wife. You'll hear them talk about these types of things and what's going on their property. You're also going to hear from a number of different Border Patrol agents who have experience out in that property and in that general area, who know the area. Border Patrol knows what's going on out there. They know which types of people are out there and what they're doing. And this is an area, Mr. Kelly's ranch is about 1.5 miles north as the crow flies from the border wall. And you're going to hear something called the end of the wall. You're going to hear that described by witnesses in this case. 1.5 miles south of Mr. Kelly's property is the international border between the United States and Mexico. And there's a wall out there, and then it ends. there's a very tall wall. It's metal. It has razor wire on top. It's pretty big and pretty imposing, pretty difficult to climb over or get around. And then it just stops. That wall just stops. And after that, there's a little barbed wire fence, and there's what are called Normandy barriers, which are sort of metal crisscross things that will stop a vehicle, but they won't stop people. And so you're going to hear that the walls can be effective in moving traffic. So traffic that might come through closer to Nogales now has to move further out and come across here where the wall ends, which is right near Mr. Kelly's property. And so this is a corridor. Mr. Kelly's property is in a corridor of illegal traffic. And you'll hear that that illegal traffic includes human smuggling and drug smuggling. You'll hear that there are different sort of jobs, I suppose, or positions involved with this illegal traffic. There are scouts and their guides, who are people who are working to facilitate both human and drug smuggling. So a scout is a person who's going to typically be stationed at a high point on a mountain with binoculars, who can survey an area visually. They're typically wearing camouflage, typically trying to conceal themselves, and they have a radio with them so that they can see where a border patrol is. They can see where a group is that might be going through for whatever reason. They can see where the pickup point is, and they can relay this information on the radio to the bad guys on the ground who are trafficking the people or trafficking the drugs through the area. You're also going to hear that out there are guides or coyotes, but the coyotes are the guides, and those are the folks who are guiding groups of people through this area. A guide will have a radio. A guide might be listening on the radio to a scout or to somebody else. A guide will be responsible for bringing either people or people who are carrying drugs or just people to a certain location. You're also going to hear that there are other groups out there that are called either rip crews or bandits, depending on which term you prefer. But there are groups of people out there who try to take advantage of the illegal traffic that's going on. These are people who might confront somebody who's carrying drugs with weapons, steal the drugs from the person who's carrying drugs. These are people who might confront these migrant groups and rob them, because this type of crime doesn't really get reported. If somebody's a migrant and they're in here, they're very vulnerable. If the bad guys go and rob them, it's not frequent that that's reported. So this is just the general character of the type of crime that's happening in this rural area that's out east of Nogales, very near Mr. Kelly's property. You're going to hear that this traffic is controlled. This is not haphazard criminal activity. This is organized criminal activity. And there's a hierarchy of organization involved in these trafficking enterprises. And you're going to hear that everything is controlled, including illegal migration, by these higher up drug trafficking organizations. You're going to hear that nothing goes through there. No drugs, no people, no nothing, no asylum seekers, no nothing, unless there's some sort of knowledge or approval from these organizations who control this territory. As such, you're going to hear that sometimes these organizations will retaliate against a guide, let's say, for various reasons. Perhaps this guy lost a load of drugs that he was supposed to deliver. Perhaps this guy stole a load of drugs that he was supposed to deliver. Perhaps this guide talked to the wrong person, gave information to the wrong person. Perhaps this guide smuggled a little bit extra without permission. Smuggling extra without permission is not allowed either. This is all happening in the area of Mr. Kelly's ranch. This ranch is isolated, it's secluded. There are Border Patrol cameras that are out there looking at the National Forest and looking at some of the properties out there. These cameras are not regularly pointed on Mr. Kelly's property. And the smugglers who use this area, they know how to avoid the cameras, they know how to go under the radar. Smugglers in that area are largely successful at what they do. Smugglers in that area are not keen to have a lot of extra police presence in that area. They've got a good operation going through there. They don't want people coming in there and messing that up for them. Mr. Kelly's property is a good corridor because it's right there north of where the wall ends, which is where people are coming through. And it's also right on the way to a road called Duquesne Road, which goes east to west out there. And that's a good pickup location. People who move drugs and people drop things off into a vehicle takes them somewhere else. Duquesne Road is known for a lot of that sort of traffic. That's the knowledge that Border Patrol brings to the table about this area and about what's going on out there. Mr. Kelly and Wanda bring knowledge about this area as well, based on what they've seen and based on what they've done over the years. We mentioned too that Mr. Kelly and Wanda both feel less safe over time as they're on this property, as they're receiving this information, and as they're looking at more evidence. And on those campsites that I mentioned where they're finding water bottles, they're finding clothing, they're finding things like that, they're noticing differences in clothing too. They're noticing that there's a lot more camouflage that they're seeing now that they didn't used to see. They're noticing that these water bottles that people are carrying are painted black. So a plastic water bottle that's painted black to avoid reflecting off of anything, to further avoid detection.
We're a lot about the border.
And they find carpet shoes all over their property on a pretty regular basis. The carpet shoes are, it's a cutout piece of carpet that you put on the bottom of your shoe. And then there's camouflage and Velcro that's sewn into the carpet to attach the carpet to your shoe.
Oh my God.
And they learned that these are tools that are also used by smugglers to try to avoid being tracked, because Border Patrol tracks people, and carpet shoes, hopefully for the smugglers, tend to avoid that. Carpet shoes are typically discarded when a person gets picked up, because they don't want to be found with carpet shoes later, because that looks pretty suspicious. And so you'll find groups of carpet shoes just dropped in various locations on Mr. Kelly's property at various times.
I'm learning all about the border
Mr. Kelly runs into
situation
this,
more and more each time.
there's a group out here of somebody doing something.
This would never happen
and
if we
they
close
got
the
picked up from
borders.
here. Sometimes that's on his property, sometimes it's on roads near his property. It's a common occurrence for Mr. Kelly and his wife out there to have to deal with that. Things get very serious one time when Mr. Kelly is no longer on the property. Mr. Kelly leaves because he and his wife have some property up in the White Mountains. It has to be prepared before they can stay in it. A lot of things have to be de-winterized and stuff like that. But they like to go to the White Mountains in the summertime. Mr. Kelly's away at the White Mountains once when he gets a call from Wanda. And she says that something happened. She doesn't know what, but something happened. There's helicopters everywhere. She doesn't know what's going on. Mr. Kelly and Wanda eventually hear that somebody found a dead body near Mr. Kelly's property. And this is the body of a woman who's been discovered. He believes in a car. He hears this little secondhand, third-hand knowledge, so he's not sure exactly what happened out there, but he's very concerned. And one of the neighbors tells him that this woman was possibly murdered. And he stops what he's doing, he returns, and he goes back because he doesn't want Wanda to be by herself when all of this is going on. This is the environment that he finds himself in, and this is what he and Wanda are dealing with on a regular basis. They used to feel safe on their property. They don't feel safe on their property anymore. And there's a lot of scary things that are happening around them. They've called law enforcement before, and they know that it takes time to get out there. They have a good relationship with law enforcement. Mr. Kelly continues to report things that he sees, including various cuts in his fences. Because back in the day, when he had family groups going through, they would go under the fences by the smooth wire. Not anymore. Now his fences get cut pretty regularly. And his cows will get out, and he has to walk his fences to make sure that he can repair them and things like that. So he's scared every day on his property. And he needs to arm himself every day on his property to try to deter this, to try to protect himself. It's in this context that Mr. Kelly sends text messages that the state put on your screens in front of you during their opening statement. You're going to hear about some of Mr. Kelly's text messages, and the state's going to tell you that this shows that Mr. Kelly is just amping himself up to go do something. He's really getting ready to hurt somebody. He really hates people who are crossing his property, etc. I just want to get out in front of that a little bit and give you folks the context so that when you read those messages, you can understand what Mr. Kelly is saying. In those messages, Mr. Kelly's talking to a friend of his who lives up in the White Mountains. And in those messages, Mr. Kelly is sharing his feelings with his friend. And when men get together to share their feelings, as far as I know, maybe this doesn't mean anything, but when they get together to share their feelings, they don't typically say, hey man, I'm really scared on my property. There's a lot going on. I feel this is getting out of my control. I hope and pray that nothing will happen to me or my wife, but I'm really scared. Maybe some men do that, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them will say things like, hey man, I'm in a war zone over here. Give me some support, buddy. Or hey, guess what happened the other day? I was out there, and they tell stories. They exaggerate. They go over the top to the point of even lying and making things up. They insult each other. They use self-deprecating humor. They talk about how they're too old to run away. I can't shoot straight, gotta shoot a lot of rounds, I'm too old. That's the sort of conversation that we're talking about. We're talking about private conversation between two guys. That's crude, that's over-exaggerated, and that could certainly be offensive in some company. What's also never intended to be seen by anybody. This is intended to be private. This is intended to be just a couple of guys who know each other, who have known each other for a very long time.
Monday.com is the ideal platform for any organization that is looking to make their work more efficient.
The evidence is not going to show that these messages show that Mr. Kelly is a mean or a violent person, or that Mr. Kelly hates anybody. These messages do not take away from Mr. Kelly's compassionate heart. They do illustrate his fear, and they illustrate his increase in concern about what's happening.
I don't like how she generalizes.
They illustrate his knowledge that he might be encountered with something dangerous. They illustrate his fear of being discovered unarmed on his property. And they illustrate his fear of possibly being confronted by armed people on his property, as he has been in the past. And then, on January 30th of 2023, Mr. Kelly is confronted with this threat. January 30th starts out a day like any other day on Mr. Kelly's ranch. He goes outside, he does his chores, he's got his animals, he's checking on them. And then he goes inside to eat lunch. It's a late lunch, it's around 2 o'clock, something like that. His wife, Wanda, is in the house and she's playing with the cat when this happens. And Mr. Kelly's making his sandwich and he looks up and he sees something out of the windows in front of him. From where he's standing, and the state showed you that picture where they showed here's where the body was, here's the view that he got. Mr. Kelly's not standing on his patio when he looks up. He's standing inside his house and looking out windows. That view that the state showed you in that picture, that's impossible to see from where Mr. Kelly's standing inside of his house. You go outside on the patio, it's extremely difficult to see. Inside in the house, absolutely impossible. There's no way Mr. Kelly saw anything out there at that distance from inside his house. But he does see something from inside his house. He sees at least 5 people carrying large backpacks and carrying rifles. And they're going across his property. Window on the left, window on the right. He sees them going from left to right. He says, Wanda, be quiet. Call Jeremy Morcell. Call the ranch liaison, because he sees these people. That's the person who responds. That's the fastest person who responds to help. Wanda gets her phone. She calls the number. Mr. Kelly feels threatened when he sees these people walking across his property like this with those weapons. Mr. Kelly gets the ranch liaison on the phone. He tells the ranch liaison about what he's seeing. And then he hears a shot. He hears a shot fired. A single shot. He thinks it's the sound of a rifle shot. This happens so fast, but this single shot that he hears changes everything in his mind. He knows that something is happening outside. Something violent, something dangerous. That single shot might not be the last shot fired. That might be the first of many shots that he hears. All of this processes through his mind in less than a second. Just hearing that single shot, suddenly everything is different. Suddenly, this might go very badly. Wanda's with him. She didn't hear the shot. Wanda wears hearing aids, and those were fading. And she doesn't hear noises that are happening outside like that, even when they're working to the best of their abilities. But Mr. Kelly heard that shot, and he knew that he and his wife were in danger. Time in a moment like that is really suspended, and people start acting. There's not a lot of logical thought process. There's action. Some people freeze, some people act. And Mr. Kelly acted. He took action in order to protect himself and to protect his wife. Again, he tells Wanda, Wanda, call Agent Morcell. Wanda calls Agent Morcell. Mr. Kelly quickly says, I might be being shot at. I might be returning fire. I'm returning fire. Goes out. Agent Morcell describes this conversation as very quick. He says Mr. Kelly is excited. He says Mr. Kelly is obviously encountering something, because he obviously is. He's inside his house. He cannot see the location where this body is discovered from there, but he's obviously encountering something. That means there's something Mr. Kelly wanted to just go out onto the patio with his rifle to be visible so that people could see him and they would run away. They wouldn't encounter him. That was his plan. So he walks outside the metal porch door that he goes out. It shuts with a bang. It's a loud bang. The person who's in front of the group who's leaving turns, sees Mr. Kelly, and points his rifle at Mr. Kelly. This is another one of those moments, like hearing that single shot. He sees a rifle. A rifle is pointed at him. Mr. Kelly is threatened. There are armed criminals on his property. He's already heard a shot. Maybe another shot is about to be fired, and maybe it's about to be fired at him. He believes that his life is in imminent danger. He knows that Wanda is in the house behind him. He knows her life is also in imminent danger, and he has to stop the threat. He has to stop it from happening. He makes a split-second decision. He doesn't shoot this person. He doesn't use lethal force, even though he had every right to do so. He doesn't. He raises his rifle at an angle high up so that he knows he's not going to hit anybody, and he fires. He fires until the threat is gone. He fires until these people are on their way out and he knows that they're leaving. You heard the state talk about how Mr. Kelly's rifle had a 30-round magazine. It can be emptied in a matter of seconds. Mr. Kelly didn't empty his magazine, not even close. Mr. Kelly fired 8-9 shots, and then he stopped. He stopped because the threat stopped. The threat was gone, and he stopped. What he did to protect himself and to protect his wife was effective. These folks run away. Wanda, she's inside the house. She can hear these shots. These shots are coming from close by. She can hear them. She freezes. She can't even look out the window. She's so scared that her husband might be out there dead. She doesn't know what happened. She doesn't know how long she stands there, afraid to look out and see what happened. She doesn't want to see his body when she looks out the window. She gets the courage eventually to look out. She doesn't see Alan. She's relieved. She sees him walking on the road towards the barn. He tells her he's okay. He says he's going to go check on his barn, and he walks in that direction to make sure that his barn is secure. He walks on his road to make sure people are gone and to make sure he and his wife are truly safe. As he does that, he has another phone call with Agent Morcell. He tells Agent Morcell that he saw these folks, and Agent Morcell asks him if Mr. Kelly was being shot at or if they were armed. Mr. Kelly says something to the effect of, "It's too far away to tell if they are all armed," something along those lines. Agent Morcell interprets that as Mr. Kelly saying, now he doesn't say anybody is armed. Now he's changed his statement. This misunderstanding between Mr. Kelly and Agent Morcell is later used against Mr. Kelly. Unfortunately, the phone calls that Mr. Kelly has with Agent Morcell are not recorded, and so we're never going to know the exact words that Mr. Kelly used in this case. And this is the first of a very unfortunate theme in this case, the theme of words being changed, of meanings being misunderstood, of statements being twisted. And we will see this again. Agent Morcell, eventually, he sent his agents out there, the sheriff's department. They're going out there to investigate this offense, to see what's happening. They get out there and they begin to search the area. The deputies who are searching the area are themselves carrying rifles because they're told the nature. They fan out in this area near where Mr. Kelly said he was shooting. They spread out and they walk through it. They walk through the pasture that's out there, the yard. They go beyond Mr. Kelly's 2 fences, all the way back into where the wash is. Multiple deputies are out there searching that area. They're looking for people who might be hiding, people who might be hurt, They're looking for people who might be under trees or under bushes. They're looking in washes. They're looking for people who might be on the ground. And they don't find anybody. They don't find anybody who's injured or hiding. They don't find anybody who's dead or dying. They don't find anybody at all. They don't find any sign of the men that Mr. Kelly described or anybody else. Everybody's gone. They find Mr. Kelly, and then they briefly talk with Mr. Kelly about what happened. Deputies, a number of them, talk to Mr. Kelly. They talk to Wanda. They don't record their interactions. They don't, record the conversations. So we don't know, again, exactly what is said. And here we see words that get changed. We see differences in different reports. It's very unclear what was actually said, and because nothing was recorded, we don't know what was actually said. Nobody at this point did a thorough interview with Mr. Kelly or his wife. This was brief. They were generally searching for people. They didn't find any people, and when they figured we didn't find any people, there's really not much for us to do here. We'll document the incident and we'll go home. So nobody ever sat down with either Mr. Kelly or Wanda and said, talk me through this. Let's take this one step at a time. Let's go through this slowly. While you talk, I'll ask you some clarifying questions if I have them. If I hear something that's I think is wrong, I'm going to tell you, and you can tell me if I misunderstand that. Nobody ever did that at this point with Mr. Kelly or his wife, and nobody ever recorded any other interactions with Mr. Kelly or his wife out there. Law enforcement leaves. Mr. Kelly and his wife are spooked and exhausted from this incident. They're shaken, but they figure that it's over, and they're grateful that they're both unharmed. They think that's the end of it. This has already been a very long and traumatic day for the Kellys, but unfortunately, their nightmare's just beginning at this point. Later that evening, they think this is all over. Everything's over and done with. Later that evening, Mr. Kelly goes outside to check on his horse. He always brings Sunny, the horse, into the closer pastures in the evening, and this is part of his routine. He's checking on Sunny again because Sunny was very spooked during this incident, and he wants to make sure again that his horse, Sunny, is okay. Mr. Kelly's dogs, he's got 2 dogs, they go out with him. They go everywhere with him. 2 dogs are always with Mr. Kelly when he's out on his property. He goes outside and he's getting his horse taken care of and squared away for the night. And then he notices that his dogs are looking at something. His dogs are circling around something in the grass. And this is about 115 yards away from his house. This is outside of 2 separate fences. If you go outside of the house onto the patio, there's a fence, there's a pasture, there's another fence. We're beyond the second fence, very far away from Mr. Kelly's house. He goes up to see what the dogs are looking at. And he approaches and he sees the body of Gabriel Cuen-Butimea. When he sees that body, he freezes. One of those moments again where time sort of stands still for Mr. Kelly. He thinks, oh my goodness, he's just discovered a body on his property. He sees his dogs sniffing and nudging the body. He notices the body seems to be stiff.
How do we know he really shot
And
him?
his background tells him this person might have rigor mortis of some kind. He's stiff. He notices the dogs and he sees the limbs are stiff. The sun's going down at this point. It's almost dark. He's looking at the body. He sees this is a man. He sees this man is wearing a camouflage backpack. It's not a big backpack like the group that he saw earlier. This isn't in the place where he saw the group earlier. And he notices there's a camouflage fanny pack also next to the body, hanging down, not really attached to anything. And he's remembering that single shot that he heard earlier in the day before he
Oh,
went
it could be
outside.
somebody else that have done
That
it.
single shot is coming back to him.
Oh,
He's in shock. He stands frozen. He's never found a body before. He's never seen a dead person before. He doesn't know what to do, but a million thoughts are racing through his mind. He knows he fired shots earlier. He knows the body's on his property. He knows that somebody might be thinking to blame this on him. He is scared out of his mind. He's remembering again that
this
single
man should
shot
never
that he
be on
heard.
trial.
He also knows there might be people around him. He doesn't know if he's alone. He doesn't know who else is out there. Obviously, tons of people were on his property throughout the day, and he doesn't know if anybody else is out there. He is scared. In spite of this fear, he calls for help. In spite of knowing, oh my gosh, this might come back on me, he calls for help. He does the right thing. He calls the ranch liaison because that's who he calls. That's the call that he makes whenever he's seeing something go on his property. So he calls Jeremy Morcell, Agent Morcell. He has faith that this can be investigated, law enforcement will handle this, and everything's going to be okay. That faith turns out to be very misplaced. When he calls Agent Morcell, and again, no phone call to Agent Morcell is actually recorded. Agent Morcell remembers these conversations a certain way. Mr. Kelly remembers these conversations a different way. We don't know what was actually said because we don't have a recording. But he calls Agent Morcell. He says something, this is
kind of like
very
he said,
bad.
she said.
Send the sheriff out here. Send help out here now. According to Agent Morcell, he's saying something may have been struck earlier. That's what Agent Morcell says that Mr. Kelly says. Mr. Kelly's in shock. He's scared. He sounds serious. Agent Morcell has never heard him like this before. He says he doesn't want to talk over the phone. He still doesn't know who might be listening or who might be out there. Agent Morcell calls another Border Patrol agent. He calls an Agent Layugan, and he relays that information to Agent Layugan. Agent Layugan calls the Sheriff's Department and says something that influences very seriously the way law enforcement responds to this call. Agent Layugan, whether on purpose or by accident, but in a very big way, changes Mr. Kelly's words. Mr. Kelly, according to Agent Morcell, who spoke with Mr. Kelly, said, something may have been struck. I need you to, something may have been struck earlier. Agent Layugan takes that, and he says to the dispatcher, the homeowner's reporting, I may have struck something. He said, I may have struck something. Not what Mr. Kelly said. Makes a big difference, though. Makes all the difference, possibly. This is the first, not the last, example of words being changed. This monumental statement goes to the dispatcher with the Sheriff's Department. This is the person who's responsible for telling the deputies who are going out there, responsible for telling them, here's what you're going to see, here's what you're going to encounter, this is the call that came in. So when she gets on the radio to tell the deputies to go out there, she's saying, the homeowner says he may have shot someone. Now it's not may have struck someone, it's he may have shot someone. That's what the homeowner said. I may have shot someone. Not what Mr. Kelly said. That's what law enforcement hears when they're on their way to answer this call. And that affects the way the deputies approach this call when they get out there. The deputies are viewing this case one way and one way only. And this is their first step in the investigation. This big change influences and establishes the bias in the investigation against Mr. Kelly. The dispatch then calls Mr. Kelly to talk to him. You heard that call, and you're going to hear that call again. Mr. Kelly is nervous and in shock, but he answers the phone and he speaks to the lady who's doing the dispatch. Mr. Kelly cannot bring himself to tell her that there's a dead person on his property. He's scared, he's in shock. He's never found a dead body before. He can't say the words. There is a dead person here. I'm looking at a dead person. That's hard. It's very, very hard. They're not coming out. It's not working. So he tries to tell her a different way, and that call reflects that. He tells her he doesn't want to get in trouble. He doesn't want to get her in trouble. He says these things. He does. He says these things. And he says these things because in that moment of shock and fear and discovery, he's thinking, they might think I did this. They might think I did this. And he's right. And his fear is reasonable. So when he makes those comments in his shock and in his fear, and somebody who's not troubled by this wouldn't make those comments. Somebody who's not troubled by this would say, I found a dead body. He's troubled by this. He's scared. He doesn't know what to do. He's rattled beyond anything. Dispatch keeps asking him questions, and he communicates to dispatch that there is a body out there. He says it in
I just wanna have fun, clap my hands, turn around now and dance, dance, dance. I just wanna have fun, clap my hands.
so many ways without actually using the words, because he can't use the words. But you can tell from that phone call that he's struggling and he's trying to communicate this fact so that he can get some help. He says, there's the body of an animal, you know, as opposed to a vegetable or a meat. You know what I'm saying? He's trying to get dispatch to acknowledge what he's
We
saying.
heard that.
He's not trying to treat anybody like within an inhumane manner. He's trying to communicate the facts in the only way that he can to find the words to do so. Eventually, he references the dead woman, the woman that he and Mrs. Kelly had heard about on that trip when Mr. Kelly was in the White Mountains. He says, remember that situation. Come on, dispatcher. You're going to understand it now. Remember that situation. That's what we have here. You know, the body. Okay. Dispatch finally gets it. And he doesn't want to use this word either because he's still outside. He still doesn't know who might be around him or who might be listening.
It's very
When
understandable.
dispatch sends out the deputies, she tells the deputies that Mr. Kelly was being evasive when he had this conversation with her. So that's another example of bias in this characterization of Mr. Kelly's words as being evasive. She could have used a different word. She could have said, he sounds scared. He sounds like he's in shock. He sounds like he's afraid to speak to me directly. He sounds hesitant to use certain words. She chose the word evasive, and she spread that characterization to the deputies who were responding to the scene. So now the deputies think, we're going to go talk to this guy who's being evasive and who says he admitted he might have shot someone. Not at all the way Mr. Kelly reported this, but that's what the deputies are thinking when they go out there. When the deputies arrive, Mr. Kelly takes them to where the body is. And you'll note he has a conversation with Deputy Lopez, who's the first one out there on the scene who talks to him. And once law enforcement is there, Mr. Kelly says, there's a person, there's a body, there's a person. He is over there. He uses that language now that he knows there's somebody else who's there on the scene. The deputies that get there can see that there's a single gunshot wound, a single shot going through the side of the body and coming out through the chest.
All right, sorry to interrupt
No worries.
you, but we do need to take an afternoon break. So we'll take the break now.
What?
Take about a 15-minute break. I know some of you wanted to see the jury commissioner, Juan Pablo Guzman, maybe
Oh
about
my God, why are you doing that?
what you have to submit. So I'm seeing if you can come up now and talk to you during this break. If not, we'll put them together with you
Why?
next week. All right,
Why
we'll take a 15-minute
this?
recess. We'll come back in about 3 o'clock.
You just shut her off like that. Oh, for God's sake. I'm gonna have a copy snap. Why does this judge do that?
Are you going to download this stuff right now?
I can. I better. Let me see the bathroom real quick.
Thinking about something else.
You're just gonna stay here all day.
I was like thinking about how I'm going to solve this story. How am I going to solve this puzzle and make everything fit? Right. Because I was just reading our order instructions and it said that like you're not allowed to individuals may not transmit over the internet while inside of the paper. So in other words, if you don't file my story,
Yeah, you have to drop it. But I guess you.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Really? What just happened? She's in the middle of her opening and the judge interrupts her and says, we are going to take a break. I'll be right back. They are on a break right now. The state was in the middle of her opening, and the judge interrupt her and says, we're going to go take our afternoon break now. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right? It does seem strange. Right in the middle of her story. And she gets to the point where she gets to the part of the story where she's talking about how it all went down. And then let's take a break. Shall we? I don't like this judge. Oh, good. Now we get live. You go. Yeah. All right. I'm frustrated. I don't know about anybody else. Why are you doing this, you judge? There was a hot mic too. I wonder if I can get it. Are they?
Gonna hit anybody on a dead body before. He can't. I hear that call again.
Well, inside.
There, people are talking. This is dead mic.
I
I know corporate started.
I guess you.
Oh, okay. They shut it off because this was a hot mic. Oh my gosh. I do pick some doozies, don't I? It's where he stopped her during her opening. Here, let me play that again.
Body before. He can't say the words. There is a dead person here. I'm looking at a dead person. That's hard. It's very, very hard. They're not coming out. It's not working. So he tries to tell her a different way, and that call reflects that. He tells her he doesn't want to get in trouble. He doesn't want to get her in trouble. He says these things. He does. He says these things.
Of course you're going to think that.
And he says these things because in that moment of shock and fear and discovery, he's thinking, they might think I did this. They might think I did this. And he's right. And his fear is reasonable.
She was just getting
So when he makes those comments in his shock and in his fear, and somebody who's not troubled by this wouldn't make those comments. Somebody who's not troubled by this would say, I found a dead body. He's troubled by this. He's scared. He doesn't know what to do. He's rattled beyond anything. Dispatch keeps asking him questions, and he communicates to dispatch that there is a body out there. He says it in so many ways without actually using the words because he can't use the words. But you can tell from that phone call that he's struggling and he's trying to communicate this fact so that he can get some help. He says, there's the body of an animal, as opposed to a vegetable or a minute. You know what I'm saying? He's trying to get dispatch to acknowledge what he's saying. He's not trying to treat anybody like within an inhumane manner. He's trying to communicate the facts in the only way that he can to find the words to do so. Eventually, he references the dead woman, the woman that he and Mrs. Kelly had heard about on that trip when Mr. Kelly was in the White Mountains. He says, remember that situation. Come on, dispatcher, you're gonna understand it now. Remember that situation. That's what we have here. You know, the body. Okay. Dispatch finally gets it. And he doesn't want to use this word either because he's still outside. He still doesn't know who might be around him or who might be listening. When dispatch sends out the deputies, she tells the deputies that Mr. Kelly was being evasive when he had this conversation with her. So that's another example of bias in this characterization of Mr. Kelly's words as being evasive. She could have used a different word. She could have said, he sounds scared. He sounds like he's in shock. He sounds like he's afraid to speak to me directly. He sounds hesitant to use certain words. She chose the word evasive, and she spread that characterization to the deputies who were responding to the scene. So now the deputies think, we're gonna go talk to this guy who's being evasive and who says he admitted he might have shot someone. Not at all the way Mr. Kelly reported this, but that's what the deputies are thinking when they go out there. When the deputies arrive, Mr. Kelly takes them to where the body is. And you'll note he has a conversation with Deputy Lopez, who's the first one out there on the scene who talks to him. And once law enforcement is there, Mr. Kelly says, there's a person, there's a body, there's a person, he is over there. He uses that language now that he knows there's somebody else who's there on the scene. The deputies that get there can see that there's a single gunshot wound, a single shot going through the side of the body and coming out through the chest.
All right, sorry to interrupt you, but we do need to take an afternoon break. So we'll take the break now.
Right there.
Take about a 15-minute break. I know some of you wanted to see the jury commissioner, but one probably was my.
This wouldn't make those coming out through the chest.
All right.
He's rattled beyond.
Well, inside.
So now the deputies are on the
Tim, turn
scene.
it to the hot mic.
The deputies that get there can see that there's a single gunshot wound, a single shot going through the side of the body and coming out through the chest.
All right.
Just gonna stay here all day.
I was like
Okay.
thinking about
He still doesn't know who might be around him. Kelly takes them to where the body is. And you'll note he has a conversation with.
You want to stay?
So here's the hot mic.
Kyler has already transmitted the 5.
Are you gonna download this stuff right now?
I can. I better. Let me see the
I was
bathroom real
like
quick.
thinking about something else.
You're just gonna stay here all day.
I was like
Okay.
thinking about how I'm supposed to bring, how am I gonna solve this puzzle and make everything fit? Right, because I was just reading our order instructions and it said that like, we're not allowed to,
We love hot mics, don't we?
individuals may not transfer over the internet. Well, inside of the paper. So in other words, if I don't file my storyline.
In here, yeah, you have to drop it, but I guess you.
Hey, I'm Kyle Bush, driver of the number 8 Rebel Bourbon race car.
Okay, I am going to end this live stream because I don't know what's going on with this court. It's weird, it's crazy. And thank you for all for tuning in. I'm sorry about this delay. We've been sitting here for a while. I've been on Pinterest. But anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and end it. And everyone have a great weekend. And I will chat with you all later. Thanks.